So if you were curious about what tempeh is, it is basically like a fermented, compacted soybean stuff. So it's really similar to tofu. Similar to tofu, also, it does not have a whole lot of flavor to it. Also, you can hear panting. That's my dog in the background. Hey, buddy. He was recently protecting us from whatever was in the backyard. So now he's hanging out by his water bowl on the cool tile, but that's the panting in the backyard. So it doesn't taste like very much. So what I'm actually going to do is that since it still has that little bit of soybean texture to it, you can actually break it into little tiny pieces. And there's lots of different ways to do this, but I was watching some other video and it basically was like, and look, now it's like ground beef, except obviously not. And just like tofu, it will also do the thing where it will taste like whatever you put it with. So I'm gonna marinate this in something and hope that it mimics ground beef. We'll see how that goes. There are a million ways to make stuffed mushrooms. So what I'm going to do today is I have the tempeh, which has been marinating in about a cup of chicken broth and about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. That is 1 clove of garlic. It was a big clove, minced. This is parsley stems. We have a parsley plant that is outside, and these stems are really tasty and crunchy and delicious, and no recipes ever call for them, so I just put them in random places. And then these are actually the stems of the mushrooms, and all of this is going to go together. If I panic, I might add an egg as a binder, and I'm going to cover it with mozzarella cheese so that you'll never know what's inside of them. That's the plan. I know you usually use breadcrumbs, but we don't have any breadcrumbs right now, so we're not using those. All right, so the meal that I made with chicken thighs, the pears, the tempeh cheese, and the mushrooms, and I was supposed to use tomatoes, and I had a plan. I had a plan for the tomatoes, and I forgot them. So there's no tomatoes here, but that's okay. It's still delicious. So these are mushrooms. So these actually have the tempeh, which I went ahead and took and broke down in little tiny pieces and soaked in a combination of chicken broth and soy sauce, so it would hopefully kind of mimic ground beef. That's been mixed within the stems from the mushrooms, a little bit of parsley and an egg, and then of course topped with the mozzarella cheese. So those are the stuffed mushrooms. Then the chicken has been done with the 40 cloves of garlic. So this is actually super similar to the Cornish, when I had the Cornish game hen. It's the same recipe from Simon Majumdar, but I swapped out any form of alcohol for the pears. So added to it is a cup of the diced sweet pears, and then I used, instead of white wine like the recipe calls for, I used the syrup from the pears with a little bit of water and chicken broth because I needed a whole cup and I didn't have a whole cup. And then that's topped with parsley. So yes, there's lots of garlic in here and some onions. I went ahead and sort of a side of potatoes because that'll hopefully soak up some of the extra juices. And I was supposed to throw in tomatoes. It was supposed to be 40 cloves of garlic and then the chicken. And I was supposed to throw the tomatoes on top of the chicken before it went into the oven. And I completely forgot about the tomatoes. 100%. Forgot. Forgot to write it down. Saw them in the fridge a while ago. Forgot. But
it is okay. Your tomato has become no-mato.
I'm used to 5 ingredients. I was even trying to do the whole Groundhog's Day, like the recipe came back. Like, it was a good plan.
Yeah. Well done. All right, so we will see in just a moment what our guest judges have to say.
All right, so we just finished eating the food. It was pretty amazing. I'll let Katie go first about giving our commentary about the foods. So,
All right.
Katie?
So I thought that the mushrooms were a really nice mix of different textures. So mushrooms are always a big hit with me, but I thought it was a little bit fancier. I liked that they weren't soggy. Sometimes the mushrooms you get in restaurants that are stuffed are a little bit soggy, but this was still really nice and kind of firm and good textures. Really like that. Big fan of potatoes as well. So the rosemary potatoes were really, really good. And overall, very impressed with the chicken. I'm always impressed anytime somebody cooks chicken that's not just a chicken breast. And so I thought was it thighs? Yes, thighs. Yep. Thighs. Really, really tasty, and the pears mixed in with the garlic, very, very good. I have nothing bad to say about today's meal.
So, I pretty much agree with all the general sentiments. It was really delicious meal. The parts that I liked the most was, one, I was impressed with the mushrooms, because that is where Stephanie hid the food that she suspected I would not like, and she did an amazing job, because I ate those, and I ate the first, I cut in half, ate the first half, I was like, that's pretty good, and then I ate the rest of them, and they were gone. And I usually try to proportion out stuff so that I can have equal distribution of foods throughout the meal, and it just didn't work. I ate the mushrooms and they were gone. So the other parts was the pears were amazing. So trying to do better on explaining amazing and tasty than last time. So I had some critiques with that, so I'm going to try and do better. So the pears did add a nice flavor to the chicken. They complemented it really well. It still does go back to the idea of the sugar versus tasty graph, which we all know is a nice direct proportion. That being said, Stephanie added an additional factor, which was the garlic. And garlic also has a tasty versus garlic amount graph. And since she added both, it went from being a nice linear curve to an exponential curve. And so it was quite wonderful having the chicken. And so that's how you can apply science, to the cooking.
Just
that's the
as
whole
a
thing.
side comment, if you couldn't tell from some of this, Miles is an engineer, and that might explain a lot of his feedback.
So that's pretty much a general thing. Food, from my point of view, food that was expected not to be good, hidden really well, and tasted amazing. And the sugar and garlic amounts contributed to the chicken to make that amazing, and it was all good times.
All right, thank you both for your feedback.
Nice.
And we're back. So what do you think?
So I really enjoyed it. I would definitely make the 40 clove of garlic chicken as a regular thing because it's really easy to do and it's really tasty. And maybe next time I'll remember the tomatoes.
So
Which are not part of the regular recipe, by the way, which is why I forgot them.
So while Steph did 40 clove chicken again, which she had kind of done in a earlier week, she changed things very drastically because she had done that with Cornish game hen before, and it was a very earthy and
Bacon. It had lots of bacon in it.
yeah, it tasted like bacon because it was wrapped in bacon. Whereas this was a lot sweeter and rich, and it was a very nice, different flavor. So it was cool to see you take it in such a drastically different direction from the same base idea. The other thing that was really impressive watching you cook was you did all of your prep hours in advance. You were all like, everything was chopped, everything was in separate little bowls. It was very dainty and perfect. It was good to go. I was very impressed because that is not how my brain works. My brain works way more on the fly and is way less organized. Well done.
It's much less stressful to cook when everything's done for you. Even if you're the one that does it. But anyway. But we will be back next week with Will cooking this time.
All right, see you then.